Hi and welcome back to 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀. Today guys, we're going to be jumping down into the world of Bitcoin, taking a look at those micro movements, what's been going on the hourly charts for BTC and what I think is likely to happen next. Now, as I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not subscribe? You can always unsubscribe later. And if you haven't joined us in Discord, guys, you are missing a trick. Check it out, linked in the description below. It's the first place that we go to notify you of everything that's going on in the crypto space. Let's keep this one nice and brief and on the point. So let's jump right down into this. Right. So following on from what we saw previously, we saw a move to the downside here. Okay, now if I grab hold of my percentage drop, you can see from the high to the low, we had a 9.33% crash on Bitcoin, huge liquidity pocket right inside here. Okay, and we can see that we've basically pushed our way up, filling this this fair value gap, and we can now see ourselves kind of in this little area here. So this is kind of what we're going to reflect on. So yesterday's video, we were talking about essentially what this structure might mean, and we're going to dive into that again and see whether or not we've created any invalidations or whether our bearish scenario is still in play. I'll add the thumbnail obviously so we keep track of this going forward. So let's go ahead and start things off with Elliott wave. Okay, so here we can see that structure that I've been kind of talking about, this 1 2 3 4 5 structure. Our third wave really only can get confirmed when we hit the $24,864 level. Okay, so we've got that one marked up. That was from yesterday's video. If we're to look at this as a simple three-wave correction, then we'll be taking a look at these two areas here as interest, which is 26,118 to 26,734 on the kind of smallest side, and a slightly deeper one here at 26,014 to 26,740. So we know that there's a 1-to-1 ratio that could basically prevent us from going into this impulsive structure, just as A, B, and C, kind of something like that. Then that's something that we kind of have to consider. Considering the structure that we've currently seen, though, we are potentially on the horizon for a wave 3. Okay, so we'll see how that plays out. Let's jump into this. So as we kind of think about these structures down here, we had our 5-wave drop coming down, which we had to go down into a 15-minute chart to be able to see, but we can see it there. Bring this back to our hourly. Up here, we can see that we have moved up quite well. We had this move up, which contains 3 waves. We had this triangular wedge pattern right in here, which if I go ahead and pull this in here with a couple of trend lines just to show you how that looks, you can kind of see it kind of wedging up in like this, and then we had that move upwards. Now it is still technically possible that we do move up a little bit further. I don't think it's necessarily 100% done. It does look like it can be though. So if I take this measurement here, okay, and we were to move this to here, we could see that a 1-to-1 basically is a double top scenario. So we would consider that. Now I do not expect 30,036, this high up here, to get broken. If it does get broken, then it just means that we're still technically in this wave 2, unless of course we push up higher than 30,485. Okay, and if we do that, then it breaks this wave 2 situation. It's not allowed to do that. Okay, so for the most part, that's that area there. Then of course we've got this other high at 31,000. So there's 3 key numbers to kind of be thinking about. If we want to be bullish on the market, then the first thing we need to do is obviously push higher than 30,036 and break that initial structure there. And then we need to move up higher than 30,485 to break the idea of this bearish structure. Okay, so by doing that, you basically create the invalidation of that move to the downside. And then if we really want to be bullish on the market, 31,000 has to get broken. Okay, we have to break that high in order to really kind of come out of this structure. So looking at everything that's going on here, we've got a few things that we need to kind of consider. Okay, so for the moment, a lot of these things are still in play. We could look at this as a potential double top scenario right up here. To make sense of this 5-wave move outside of anything else, we'd have to kind of have a flat correction in here. It's the only way I could kind of see that going on. So where would that fit? It's actually quite a difficult one to see. It would have to be probably in here as a flat correction somewhere, and I wouldn't know exactly where to find that one just yet, so be one of those. Ultimately, I do think that we have to kind of come down at least in a zigzag pattern towards these lows in order to kind of facilitate the idea of this 5-wave structure, because I'm really struggling to see any other way that 5-wave count exists where it does. But you know, manipulation in the way that it has been is obviously, you know, playing its part here. So we can see that we are kind of pushing down a little bit. We are finding upper resistance currently. You can see that right in here. We are kind of finding that we are hitting a resistance trend line to the downside, but likewise we are coiling up at the same time just in here as well. So we want to be aware that we are finding ourselves with a potential breakout opportunity. So just bear that in mind. We are just about oversold on our hourly chart, so a small move to the upside outside a little triangular wedge could be something that we experience, and that could lead us into a structure that does look like this. Okay, so we want to be aware of that. Ultimately though, it doesn't distract us from the bigger macro pieces, which I'll talk about this afternoon. So all these micro movements are still playing a part of that bigger role. So for now, we'll have to see how this one plays out. If we do cross 30,036, then we have to explain why we have this 5-wave count where I do, and until we push up further than 30,485, it's still technically possible that we have this wave 3, so we want to be aware of those. Now, from a smart money concepts point of view, what's going on? Well, as I said, we had that fair value gap up here that kind of got filled out. Okay, so we saw a lot of manipulation going on, right? So I did the whole video. I think it is on here, where we had this one. Yeah, so the fake pump, right? Fake pump moving up to $30,000, right? So we did this video when price action was, actually I recorded it down here, but video went out when price was about $28,000, right? And we saw that there was these kind of big candles moving to the upside, right? These ones here. And then we see, you know, more manipulation pushing price down. So it was manipulated to the upside, then manipulated to the downside. It's all about liquidity. And when I say liquidity, it's about transfer of wealth between participants, right? So you've got large institutional investors pushing the price up to trap out retail investors who are FOMOing in, so that they can then sell to those retail investors their assets and essentially grab that liquidity being money. Okay, so when we see these big candles like these ones, specifically here, like this, right? This one right here, and this one down here, we notice that these are driven from an imbalance in the order book. Okay, basically a large order comes in down here, unable to find sufficient liquidity or buyers here, so it doesn't complete until it pushes up to much higher, right? So it fills up this bar, and essentially that imbalance, that fair value gap, and the imbalance in the order books is usually and typically a smart money move. Okay, so it drags the price up. Once they realize that there's no liquidity where they want to, they don't just continue buying, or they shouldn't be continuing buying. They just wait for price to come down. In this particular case here, they drag the price up and then drag the price down. So grabbing liquidity that sat up in this range, and then grabbing liquidity that sat down in this range. Okay, and they're basically just playing games with retail investors. And we kind of see that from smart money concepts pretty easily. Now, there's another fair value gap that is down here, just below equilibrium, and just above, actually it's now below the 200 EMA. Ultimately, we're still in a bearish structure, so we had the change of character from bullish to bearish, and that hasn't broken. There's some minor movements here that are bullish, but they are minor, and I'm not too concerned about those. And essentially, yeah, we want to be thinking about a move to the downside. We have a strong high, unlikely to get broken. We have all these red internal sell order blocks. You can see them all up there. Okay, so we're not thinking that there's going to be a lot of buying pressure. Buying pressure is right down here, currently at the equilibrium. So again, thinking about testing down here would make sense. And so really, we are talking about another move down, 28, 27, maybe a lot lower than that over time. Okay, so smart money concepts is still bearish, and that hasn't changed. So ultimately here, across these different time frames, or different analytical points of view, the consensus is pretty much the same. A move to the downside is still very valid, but nothing moves in straight lines. So we want to be aware that it does look like we're about to move up a little ways. Okay, and we'll see whether or not 30,036 gets broken, or whether or not that's going to be a double top. You can see that there is resistance up in that higher range anyway. It all depends on the appetite of the players and what's going on there. But my move to the downside, I think, is ultimately where things are likely to go as a part of the bigger picture here. So although our smaller micro movements are looking, maybe there's a couple of % movements in Bitcoin to the upside, I think we have a long way to go to the downside overall. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below, but that's at least my thoughts on where I think Bitcoin is heading over the next kind of 24, 48 hours or so. And if you have found this useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then subscribe, and don't forget to join us down in Discord. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors, and none of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.